Greetings, my fellow freedom brothers, sovereign thinkers. This is L3's Newest Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful, swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Monday, September 30th, 2019. I'd like to wish all my brothers and sisters out there, Jewish by faith, or Judaic by blood, happy Rosh Hashanah. So out there doing the whole Jewish New Year. And that's pretty damn cool, I would say. Just keep it real. Avoid having the attributes of the synagogue of Satan. Or other words, don't be a gino. And I'd like to send my condolences to Senator Marco Rubio and his clan for the loss of Marco's mother and his kid's grandmother. They're sort of be forever free. And to be very frank, even though a person like myself can be critical towards politicians or anyone based on their actions, and that's it. Never been personal vindication whatsoever, nor wish any of them ill. And that's a good spiritual conscience, I would say. Because when you have these vindictions and grudges, it can distract you. And it could curse yourself. It's like what's been happening with the whole Trump ordeal, with the impeachment inquiry. Nothing more than a complete distraction. A lot of things are happening right under our noses. I've taken the time to read the paperwork of the phone call conversation that was declassified from whitehouse.gov. And what's interesting about that is just questioning on trying and see what's going on with these accusations towards Hunter. And of course, the Atlantic Council claimed it was legit on what occurred. And there's even videos on Joe Biden at the Council of Foreign Relations meeting said he fired his ass. All you gotta do is do a little looking. However, there was even a treaty on these conditions between the United States and Ukraine that got approved by the Senate in the year 2000 under William Jefferson Clinton administration. Yeah, Bill Clinton honored it. So how come that's not being brought up in the mainstream media? And of course, those records that was declassified under the whitehouse.gov. But you know how that goes. Oh, we don't know about it. We're just going to roll in that rhetoric, accusations, and witch hunt. Yes, I want to be a parrot and criticize without any merit. How astute. Don't fall for that propaganda machine, my friends. Of course, everyone's talking about Greta Thunberg. Her platform just came out of the Ebenezer's playbook, propaganda, that came out in 1928. But don't believe the hype. Even they talk about, of course, Alaska being warm, not having ice for the past 2 years. Well, interesting about that, you should look up a book. I don't have it on the top of my head. It was mainly based on the new planets, new North America and all that, new maps. And they claim Alaska supposed to be warmer. So possible polar shifts, or even since the Fukushima earthquakes, the axis tilted. So there was an effect on that. Don't fall for the hype on global climate change. And I'm not going to refute that governments, multinational corporations are ruining the earth. The tyrannical aspects of it. Jacques Cousteau warned us about the ocean being polluted. They ignored his warning. And now look what's happening. Always got to look at these things a lot bigger than what they're trying to tell you. So, little intake, my friends. That's why I always recommend folks to always observe responsibly. Don't fall for the face value without reading the fine print. So, I know I'm just ranting. Hear some music. You may hear some music in the background. Yes, I'm at Downtowner Saloon. I like this place. Historical landmark, located at 10. I think it's Southeast River Drive. South New River Drive East in Fort Lauderdale. Right by the Broward County Jail. Near the east side of the Andrews Avenue Bridge, which they're doing construction, working on it. Should be done right after October 8th. So maybe next Wednesday you can go over the bridge. It'll be a lot easier. So, yeah, that's how it is. Well, speaking of tyranny and challenges and so forth, I was like looking at a couple of things. Actually, someone shared this on Facebook. And I've taken the initiative on reading it and go a little further here. And this one here came out on the 27th of September by Reason.com. It says here, can a federal judge sentence you for a crime your jury says you didn't commit? The answer may terrify you. As it reads here, who wrote this? I don't know who did. I apologize for that, my friends, but I'll just let you, I'll post also my Facebook page, my Spreaker page. So it says here, can a federal judge sentence you for a crime your jury said you didn't commit? In a sane world, the answer would be no. If a prosecutor charges you with 5 crimes and the jury finds you not guilty of 4 of them, the judge who doles out the sentence should be able to consider only that one guilty verdict. Yet federal judges can, and often do, use what's called acquitted conduct. Charges for which a person has found not guilty when sentencing defense for crimes the jury says they did commit. It's a horrifying bug in the federal criminal justice system that doesn't get nearly enough attention until now. Senators Dick Durbin, Democrat from Illinois, and Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, introduced a bill this week that would expressly prohibit the use of acquitted conduct at sentencing. Quote, if any American is acquitted of charges by a jury of their peers, then some sentencing judge shouldn't be able to find them guilty anyway and add to their punishment, unquote. Grassley said in a statement released this week, quote, that's not acceptable and is not American, unquote. Well, I like that. He's right. But I'll continue on here. The power of acquitted conduct is deadly arrow in the prosecutor's quiver. The fact that a judge will consider as sentencing every offense the prosecutor charges, even if juries don't buy the prosecutor's pitch, essentially allows prosecutors to game the justice system. They can charge a defendant with an offense they know they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and then charge more serious offenses with tougher penalties that they can't prove. Even if jurors act responsibly by convicting only on charges proved beyond a reasonable doubt and refuse to convict on the reached charges, the prosecutor still wins when the judge takes all the charges into consideration at sentencing. This is completely unacceptable and unconstitutional, my friends. This is what we call treasonous, prostituting attorneys and gutless judges, power-hungry ones, treasonous ones. Yeah, I call them traitors. Quote, under our Constitution, defendants can only be convicted of a crime if a jury of their peers find that they are guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, Durbin said in the statement. Quote, however, federal law inexplicably allow judges to override a jury verdict of not guilty by sentencing defendants for acquitted conduct, unquote. A laundry list of criminal justice reform groups support Durbin and Grassley's bill, titled the Prohibiting Punishment of Acquitted Conduct Act. The bill would amend the federal criminal code to preclude a court of the United States from considering, except for purposes of mitigating a sentence, acquitted conduct at sentencing, and it would define acquitted conduct to include acts for which a person was criminally charged and adjudicated not guilty after trial in a federal, state, tribal, or juvenile court, or acts underlying a criminal charge or juvenile information dismissed upon a motion for acquittal. The bill has support for several libertarian and conservative groups, including Americans for Prosperity, the American Conservative Union, Americans Tax Reform, Freedom Works, Prison Fellowship, the R Street Institute, Right on Crime, and Koch Industries. Interesting there, you know? Pros and cons, I would say. I'll give them kudos for that. It's not hard to see why this bill has bipartisan support, but to understand why the practice exists at all and why some people will inevitably, eventually oppose this bill. It helps to think of the Federal Criminal Code as a choose-your-own-adventure book in which 3 out of every 4 narrative choices end in, quote, go to prison, unquote. Police and prosecutors want to keep it that way, because they're pieces of garbage, folks. The use of acquitted conduct at sentencing empowers prosecutors at the very early stages of the justice adventure. Upon gathering enough evidence to make an arrest, the prosecutor can file enough charges that if the defendant is convicted of all of them, he or she will go to prison for a very long time. So the prosecutor encourages the defendant to plead guilty and receive a lesser sentence, staring down the barrel of 20 years in prison if they lose at trial versus 10 or 5 if they plead guilty. More than 90% of the federal defendants plead guilty. I wonder why. It's the fear factor, folks. But what if the defendant didn't do everything she was accused of? Or if the prosecutor's evidence against her is weak? Well, she can take the case to trial and have it out before a jury. Instead of 20 years in prison or 10 or 5, maybe she's acquitted of all charges and gets no time in prison, or is convicted of only a fraction of the charges that spends only 2 or 3 years in prison. That's when acquitted conduct comes into play. Prosecutors can lose before the jury and still win at sentencing. That's why when you get called for jury duty, even on a federal case, you gotta look at these people as prosecutors. All you gotta do is examine their rhetoric and how they represent themselves. I'll continue on here. Quote, using acquitted conduct to set sentences heighten the temptation of prosecutorial overreach by blunting the downside to the government. Reads an amicus brief filed by FAM and the National Association of Federal Defenders in Azra versus the United States, an acquitted conduct case that the Supreme Court has been asked to hear. Authors go on to write. It says here, if the defendant succumbs to the government's aggressive charges and pleads guilty, the government wins. If he goes to trial and is convicted on those charges, the government still wins. And if he goes to trial and persuades a jury that he's innocent of them, the government still wins. So as long as it secures conviction on a more easily proved offense and persuades the sentencing judge of his guilt by the preponderance of the evidence, when acquittal of certain counts is just a speed bump at sentencing, prosecutors have little to lose by larding an indictment with charges they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. The government has conceded as much, acknowledging that punishing acquitted conduct encourages charges prosecutors would otherwise forego. That's what the amicus brief have to say. This is bad practice. Thankfully, is one that Congress appears willing to address without waiting for the Supreme Court. And I have to agree with that. This is definitely a Fifth Amendment violation of our U.S. Constitution. And the ones that are involved, the prostituting attorneys and the judges, should be terminated from their positions and be charged for RICO. Yeah, I call it like it is, my friends. RICO, treason, or both. And even if you're a juror in these federal cases, you find them not guilty, you should say, hey, you would have to recant acquittal. I grouped the acquitted conduct as well. It's null and void. You let the judge and the prosecuting attorney know, pursue this, you're in contempt. You put that in the minutes. Nothing more than pure blasphemy, my friends. The judge has no power. The jury is supposed to be the most powerful people in the courtroom. It's known as common law, the supreme law of the land. No exceptions. That's why you got people like that. They can't stand like-minded individuals like myself. I'm not afraid to call them out on it. Yeah, I had that around these areas. And you know what? I think it's great. More people got to learn these things and implement it and share it. Be your own rabbi and teacher. Share it to everyone you know. Because it is essential, because one day you may get burnt if this occurs on your lap. Even your enemies shouldn't be treated this way if they're found not guilty. Alright? That's the bottom line. If you don't pursue that, it will haunt you in the end. Don't create this precedent or ripple effect that can haunt you or people or the folks you love. And it's interesting here because this one here came from the ethicsalarms.com. Sentencing ethics, the perplexing relevance of acquitted conduct. And there's who wrote this? His name is Jack Marshall. Okay, so Mr. Marshall wrote this, which is very cool. And sorry, the first person who wrote the one from Reason.com was Mike Riggs, excuse me. So I didn't see that until now. So I just had everything printed up here. So another reads here by Mr. Marshall. It came out on the 28th of September this year. It says here, Senators Dick Durbin, Democrat from Illinois, and Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, introduced a bill this week that, if passed and signed into law, will prohibit the use of so-called acquitted conduct at sentencing. What is acquitted conduct, you might ask? It is a charge for which the defendant has been found not guilty, as the sentencing judge nonetheless considers when sentencing that defendant for the crime that the jury said they did commit. It's all been combined. The practice give prosecutors a special edge, knowing that a judge may consider as sentencing every offense of the prosecuted charges. The prosecutor can charge a defendant what the defendant he knows he can prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and then charge more serious offenses that he probably can't prove. Even if a jury only reach a guilty verdict on the charges proved beyond a reasonable doubt and refuse to convict on other charges, the judge can and often takes all the charges into consideration at sentencing. That's why it's always good to know sentencing guidelines of each offense, and you can call them out on it too, folks. Quote, if any American is acquitted of charges by a jury of their peers, then some sentencing judge shouldn't be able to find them guilty anyway and add to their punishment. That's unquote. Grassley said in a statement released this week. In a quote here, that's not acceptable and is not American under the law, as unquote. Under the law he's proposing with Senator Durbin, if a prosecutor charges you with 5 crimes and the jury finds you guilty of 4 of them, the judge who then sentences you should be able to consider only offenses you're found guilty of. No exceptions. I have to agree. What's going on here is simply that the federal sentencing rules currently allow a judge to consider crimes he or she believes the defendant is guilty of committing regardless of what the jury decided, just as the judge can take other factors into consideration. In such cases, a judge may use a preponderance of the evidence standard, not the criminal law standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, to conclude that a jury was wrong and that a sentence should reflect conduct other than what the prosecution was able to prove to the jury's satisfaction. We know that O.J. did it, and so did the judge who sentenced him to a completely different episode involving burglary and kidnapping. That judge didn't treat O.J. as a first offender. What is wrong, un-American and Grassley's word, that O.J.'s sentence reflects the fact that he murdered 2 people and got away with it? I'm sure the Brown and Goldman families will call it justice. Al Capone was sent to prison for an unusual length of time for his tax evasion conviction, but everyone knows that the judge took into account the fact that he was a known mobster and murderer. Was that wrong? I can make an argument if a judge sits through the same trial the jury does and becomes convinced that the defendant is much worse citizen than the mere verdict reflects, the judge should be able to take those honest conclusions into consideration while sentencing. I can make an argument that if a judge can't consider charges not proven beyond a reasonable doubt to make a sentence harsher, the judge also shouldn't consider unproven, speculative, and selective judgments or documented virtues and mitigations to make the sentence more intense. Maybe I should. There are serial killers in prison who are only convicted of 1 of the 2 murders, but whom law enforcement believes probably murdered many more. That should enter into the sentencing calculations, or should they be based on a legal fiction that those other cases, now closed, were truly unsolved? I don't think that's an easy a question for the advocates of the Durbin-Grassley bill would have us believe. The Cato Institute, American for Prosperity, the American Conservative Union, American for Tax Reform, Freedom Works, Prison Fellowship, the R Street Institute, Right on Crime, and Coke Industries, among other activists and professional groups from right and left on the political spectrum, support it. Judges are currently allowed to calculate the applicable sentencing guideline range for defendants by taking into account any uncharged, acquitted, and/or unrelated conduct which the judge feels should affect a particular defendant's sentencing range, as well as other positive aspects of the defendant's life deemed relevant by the judge. The utilitarian question is whether this flexibility leads to sentences that are better for society and that better reflect society's verdict on defendants. The Prohibiting Punishment of Acquitted Conduct Act would amend the Federal Criminal Code, quote, to preclude a court of the United States from considering, except for purposes of mitigating the sentence, acquitted conduct as sentencing, unquote, and would define acquitted conduct to include acts for which a person was criminally charged and adjudicated not guilty after the trial in a federal, state, tribal, or juvenile court, or acts underlying criminal charge or juvenile information dismissed upon a motion for acquittal, unquote. Jurisprudence has been training away from acceptance of acquitted conduct in sentencing for quite a while, as a Michigan court demonstrated in People v. Beck, a 2019 case. The court wrote in part, what it says here, the United States Supreme Court's jurisprudence analyzing defendants' due process and Sixth Amendment rights charge changed significantly after Jones v. United States, which is 526 U.S. 227, 1990, and the Apprendi v. United States, 530 U.S. 466, happened in the year 2000, which held in the other than the fact of a prior conviction and any fact that increases the penalty for a crime beyond the prescribed statutory maximum must be submitted to a jury and proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Reliance on acquitted conduct as sentencing violates due process based on the guarantees of fundamental fairness and the presumption of innocence, as several state courts and many judges and commentators have concluded. When a jury has made no findings regarding the defendant's conduct, as in McMillan, no constitutional impediment prevents a sentencing court punishing the defendant as if the defendant engaged in that conduct using a preponderance of the evidence standard. But when the jury has specifically determined that the prosecution has not proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant engaged in certain conduct, the defendant continues to presume innocent. The use of the preponderance of the evidence standard in evaluating conduct that's protected by the presumption of innocence violates due process, because in sentencing, the court punished the defendant more severely on the basis of the judge's finding by the preponderance of the evidence that the defendant committed the murder of which the jury had acquitted him. It violated defendant's due process protections. Interesting brief on that. So that's very good. It says here, on the law, I think that is right. Regarding the ethics of prohibiting the consideration of acquitted conduct in sentencing, I'm not as sure. And I have to agree. The truth of the matter is, go through your uniform, no exception. You can't compromise. That's been going on for a very long time now, and it's totally unacceptable. And I'll be very frank too, because people should challenge this, especially federal judges, under Title 42, U.S. Code Section 1983 talks about this stuff, about your rights being violated. You should be compensated for it. You should sue these bastards. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. Just things occur in due time. But I'm just very disturbed in those areas, and people have to support this bill, and I think it's fantastic. It's principle, my friends, principle of a party. It doesn't matter what your belief system is. I have folks from different political views. They will stand on this, and that's what's cool. Yeah, and so toss the differences aside and stand for this common cause. Because if you don't, like I said before, it will burn you when least expected, and don't come crying to me or anyone else. That's the bottom line. All right, I'll be right back, so stay tuned. All right, kitty. So, next one here came from the Future of Freedom Foundation. It actually came out today by Jacob G. Hornberger. And Hornberger, that's how you spell it. Good site, check out. Foreign Aid for Dictators. So, very interesting here, because, what's so funny about foreign aid, you give it to all these tyrants, but that's okay, they're our friends, but you want to criticize other countries on their human rights. So there's a lot of doublespeak. And people that know me well enough, to me, foreign aid is just another form of redistribution of wealth. And there's some people out there like socialists, but they support that. I say, hey, can you explain why you support foreign aid, redistribution of wealth? And they can't really answer that. So as it reads here, notice hearing important about the hoopla regarding President Trump's withholding of U.S. foreign aid to Ukraine while he was requesting Ukrainian officials to investigate Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden for possible corruption. Notably in Washington, D.C., with the establishment press questioning the concept of foreign aid itself. Foreign aid has become such an established and accepted way of inducting foreign regimes to comply with the dictates of U.S. officials that the thought of ending it entirely doesn't even enter the minds of Republicans, Democrats, or members of the mainstream media. Of course. So it's so funny they still call it impeachable and he breaches oath of office. But those people that speak out about it, they hate freedom. Well, that's exceptional. That's patriotic. I'm being sarcastic because I get these conversations with people, via Facebook. I don't get it, man. I just get a good laugh. It's like, Bizarro's my Lord and Savior, So I will proceed here. By questioning the foreign aid itself is precisely what the American people should be doing. Not only does foreign aid contribute to out-of-control federal spending and debt that is hanging over the American people, with the debt now $22.6 trillion and climbing, it also constitutes one of the most evil, immoral practices of the U.S. government. Case in point, Egypt, notwithstanding the fact that the country is governed by one of the most brutal military dictatorships in the world. The U.S. government delivers $1.3 billion in military aid to Egypt's military dictatorship every year. So, Mr. Pompeo, can you explain that to me, please? Even though he may be critical of the Chinese government, which I'm not saying, I'm condemning, but how come you don't talk about Egypt or Israel or a few other countries like that? Yeah, can we say double speak? Yes, double standards. Remember, people at the CIA love to lie. Case in point, Egypt notwithstanding the fact that the country is governed by one of the most brutal military dictatorships in the world. The U.S. government delivers $1.3 billion in military aid to Egypt's military dictatorship every year. I now repeat that. Forgive me, folks. Like the United States, Egypt's government is based on the concept of a national security state, which is a typical government system in which a vast and permanent military intelligence establishment plays a major role in society. In Egypt, that rules is much more pronounced and a predominant than it is here in the United States. Here in the United States, the power and influence that the Pentagon, CIA, NSA would wield are indirect and often hidden. In Egypt, military intelligence establishment wields direct control of the government and the economy. To get a sense of how Egypt's national security state operates, think back to the national security state system of General Augusto Pinochet, who U.S. national security state officials helped install into power in 1973. And that attack happened on September 11th to be exact. And there was even a strong accusation that David Rockefeller and Harry Kissinger were involved. Alright, so we'll continue on here. I'm just looking. I'm sorry here. Yeah. In Egypt, military intelligence establishment wields direct control of the government and the economy. To get a sense of how Egypt's national security state operates, think back to the national security state system. And I read that. Hold on here. Oh, shoot. Sorry about that, folks. Good grief. Pinochet was unelected military dictator who ruled Chile with an iron fist. His forces rounded up tens of thousands of people who were considered to be threats to national security. That's a quote. And torture, raped, or killed them. Egypt's military dictator, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who, like Pinochet, took power in the coup, holds a presidential election, but everyone knows that is a sham. For all practical purposes, el-Sisi stands in the same position as Pinochet, as an unelected dictator. Moreover, el-Sisi is every but as brutal as Pinochet was. For an example, the past couple of weeks, demonstrations have broken out into Egypt against the corruption within el-Sisi's direct dictatorial regime. El-Sisi's forces have immediately gone into action to ensure that things do not get out of hand. So far, they have arrested some 2,000 protesters, according to an article in Al Jazeera. As it reads here, in Cairo, special security forces closed off entrances to Tahrir Square, the hub of the 2011 uprising that toppled former leader Hosni Mubarak. There was a heavy police presence around the square and some junctions in the city center. At Cairo's Al-Fath Mosque, starting the point for protests in 2011, dozens of police, some in uniform and others in plain clothes with masks and large guns, stood near the exit as prayers finished. At least 20 security vehicles were stationed around the mosque or patrolling nearby. Security forces stepped up their presence in the main squares in major cities, and plainclothes police have been nearby. Security forces also stepped up their presence in main squares in major cities, and plainclothes police have been checking motorists and pedestrians. Mobile police for political content. In a brief statement on Thursday, Egypt's Ministry of Interior warned it would, quote, confront any attempt to destabilize social peace in firm and decisive way, unquote. Ain't that nice? I think that's beautiful. Very attractive indeed. That's the kind of people we wanna send money to, right? Oh yeah. It's like, hey, I'll send it to a crook. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, he's a great guy. You know how that goes, right? All right, I'll continue on here. Moreover, Egypt's criminal justice system mirrors that of the Pentagon and CIA in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Infinite detention, torture, denial of due process of law, denial of effective assistance of counsel, and denial of trial by jury. All right, so continue on here. There is also economic aspect of Egypt's national security state. The economic system is based on the concept of socialist central planning, with the military intelligence establishment doing the planning. Not surprisingly, the socialist system has brought economic impoverishment to Egyptian citizens, while enriching the regime's military intelligence personnel. Dismal economic conditions and corruption within the regime are partly what is motivating its protesters. So yeah, but we're all more concerned about Venezuela, but not Egypt, right? Exceptionalism's patriotic, folks. Remember that. Abe Lincoln's climaxing in his grave based on his regime's past practice. Guess who was enabling this tyranny of socialism? Yes, the U.S. government, with this $1.3 billion in annual delivery of military armaments, which, like all U.S. foreign aid, is nothing more than a bribe to ensure that El-Sisi remains loyal to the U.S. government, at the risk of belaboring the obvious. Those military armaments provide Egypt's tyrants with the ability to suppress or deter dissent within the country. It also provides a means in which the military intelligence establishment is able to use domestic tax revenue to feather their own nests. The U.S. government partnership with and support of the Egypt regime should not surprise us, since the U.S. government was converted from a limited government republic to a national security state after World War II. U.S. officials have demonstrated an affinity for foreign national security states. That's why they installed Pinochet, a military general, into power 20 years before their Chilean regime change operation. The U.S. national security state officials destroyed democratic systems in Iran and Guatemala and replaced them with national security states and tyrants. Before the Persian Gulf War, the U.S. government partnered and allied with Saddam Hussein and his national security state in Iraq. In the 2003 Iraq War, the U.S. government made certain that Iraq continued with the national security state type of government system, albeit one with an elected pro-U.S. dictator. It did the same in Afghanistan after it invaded that country. Just a few days ago, President Trump expressed the sentiment of America's national security state when he called al-Sisi a great leader. Trump, of course, has also expressed the love for the brutal, unelected communist dictator of North Korea's national security state. Americans who are looking to D.C. to put America back on the right track are looking in the wrong direction. The American people need to look inward into themselves, into their consciences. It is the only way for people to recognize the moral and economic debauchery of foreign aid, and for that matter, the entire national security state form of governmental structure. Once a critical mass of Americans comes to that realization, we will be on our way forward, restoring sound moral, political, and economic principles to our land. The bottom line is, my friends, support a republic, not an empire. Even men like Washington, Jefferson, and many others were strongly opposed to foreign entanglements. We gotta stop the redistribution of wealth across the board, including foreign aid. It's nothing more than a bribe. That means Israel as well. And I say that in good faith. No exceptions. Period. If you're going to donate to countries, do it in your own time. Don't watch, not mine. Watch for my taxes or anyone else's. Go to other nations. It's completely unacceptable. You folks out there, of course, hate socialism, but you support foreign aid, then you're double speaking. And that's the truth. Alright, gonna do one more here. This actually came out today. Yeah, it came out today from the 10th Amendment Center.com. Mike Meharry. He has a show called Thoughts on My Meharry Head. Check it out. You go on there, it's really good stuff. He's talking about Oakland activists punishing efforts to block federal militarization of local police. Activists in Oakland have ramped up efforts to take the first step toward the limiting impact of federal programs that militarize local police. America Friends Service Committee, or AFCS, will host a community town hall on policing and military equipment in support of efforts to pass a city ordinance requiring approval by the Oakland City Council for the acquisition of military equipment and use policies and reporting for military equipment that the Oakland Police Department has or obtains in the future. As AFCS points out, quote, Oakland has no policy of the acquisition or use of militarized equipment. Oakland PD can acquire and use military equipment of all kinds, anywhere at any time, with no policy for its use or public reporting of what it has or how it is used, unquote. The organization notes, quote, several studies conclude police departments that acquire military-grade equipment are more likely to use violence and no more successful in reducing crime, unquote. An ordinance requiring council approval for the procurement of military equipment by law enforcement would take a first step in limiting police militarization in Oakland. As the AFCS noted, police departments often obtain military equipment from the federal government in complete secrecy. And that's unacceptable, folks. It should be transparent. Requiring local government approval would bring the process into open and provide an opportunity for concerned residents to stop the acquisition through their local representatives. Federal surplus and grant money. Through the federal 1033 program, local police departments procure military-grade weapons. Police can also get military equipment through Department of Homeland Security via DHS, the Homeland Security Grant Program. In 2013, DHS gave more than $900 billion in counterterrorism to fund states and local police. According to the 2012 Senate report, this money has been used to purchase tactical vehicles, drones, and even tanks, with a little obvious benefit to this public safety. And according to ProPublica, quote, in 1994, the Justice Department and the Pentagon have funded a 5-year program to adapt military security and surveillance technology for local police departments that they would otherwise not be able to afford, unquote. In August 2017, President Trump issued an executive order that gave a push to local police militarization. Trump's action rescinded an Obama-era policy meant to provide greater transparency and oversight around the Department of Defense, 1033 program, and other federal resources that provide military weapons to local police. Yeah, see? Remember when President Trump goes, I'm pro-law enforcement. Yeah, Richard Nixon did the same thing. And look what happened. Centralization, my friends. And a passage of an ordinance in Oakland will create a framework for the accountability and transparency for police militarization group programs in the city. It will also create a foundation for the public to stop their local police from obtaining this type of gear. Command and control. Arming peace officers, like they're ready to occupy an enemy city is totally contrary to the society envisioned by the founders. They've turned, quote, protect to serve, and into command and control, unquote. In the 1980s, the federal government began arming, funding, training local police forces, turning peace officers into soldiers to fight in this unconstitutional war on drugs. Militarization went into a hyperdrive after 9/11 when a second front opened up the war on terror, quote unquote. By making it more difficult for local police to get this military-grade gear and surveillance technology and ensuring they can't do it in secret, it makes them less likely to cooperate with the feds and removes incentives for partnerships. The passage of an ordinance would take the first step toward limiting police militarization in Oakland. What's next? The community town hall on policing and military equipment will take place Thursday, October 3rd, 2019, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the First Congregational Church of Oakland, which is at 2501 Harrison Street. Interesting there, folks. And I have to agree, centralization is dangerous. We should all be getting involved in our local communities and call it as you see it. Even in Florida, it doesn't matter because it will hurt us more. And this is why I'm real touchy when it comes to federal overreach on a financial bribery basis. Got to be vigilant in the local communities. See, that's what I'm saying, my friends. A lot of stuff is happening right under our nose. So don't get too distracted in one area. Because it may get blindsided by something else very treacherous. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us with social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, if you send something that's interesting I want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondences with decorum. Now we'll post the information on my Spreaker page, including where you can find it, so you can read it yourselves. Alright, once again, thank you for your time. But always remember that demoniac resistance is helpful for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.